I mean, picture this, right? You are sitting in the absolute most important professional meeting of your entire year.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. You're prepared, you're confident, and then, bam, someone across the table just hits you with this highly complex, maybe even hostile question.
And usually out of nowhere.
Completely out of nowhere. And instantly your brain responds by, like, preparing your body to fight a literal tiger.
A physical tiger.
Exactly. Your heart rate spikes to, what, like 120 beats per minute? A massive surge of cortisol just floods your system.
Yeah.
And the language centers of your brain, they just completely shut down.
Leaving you just staring blankly into the void.
Yes. You just go blank. And worst of all, maybe they asked you this in a language that isn't even your native tongue, so you're just sitting there helpless. Which begs the question, why does professional survival look exactly like biological panic?
Well, we're really conditioned to view those moments of panic as a failure. Right? Like a failure of our intellect or our preparation.
Especially in those high-stress corporate environments.
Exactly. Or, like you said, when operating in a non-native language, we think, oh, I'm just not smart enough or fluent enough.
Right.
But the reality is actually far more mechanistic. It's a fundamental feature of human evolution, just violently colliding with the modern corporate ecosystem.
Which is just so fascinating. And welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We have this incredible transcript in front of us from a really specialized professional communication source.
It's a great one.
It really is. And our mission today is to completely deconstruct this exact phenomenon. So we are not interested in that standard, superficial advice like, oh, just take a deep breath. Or
visualize the audience in their underwear.
Yeah, exactly. That stuff never works. We are going fundamentally deeper today. We're going to extract the actual psychological blueprints and linguistic strategies from our source material so you can systematically hack your own biological surviving responses.
And what makes the foundational lens of this source so compelling is how it treats the mental freeze.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, it treats it not as a flaw in your language proficiency, but as a completely predictable, manageable biological override.
Right, it's biology, not just bad English.
Precisely. And understanding the mechanism behind that override is really the very first step to ensuring it never neutralizes you in a boardroom again.
I love that word, neutralizes. Because the biology described in the text, it honestly reads more like a trauma response than a communication error.
It really does.
Like the moment that impossible question hits you, the physiological changes are literally instantaneous. Your palms start sweating, your chest tightens, the mental static is just overwhelming.
It's a noise.
Yeah, pure noise. Actually, I found myself thinking about computer architecture while reading this.
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Yeah, because it's incredibly similar to your computer's RAM just maxing out.
Yeah.
Like the CPU hits 100% capacity out of absolute nowhere. The fan starts screaming.
But the screen is completely frozen.
Exactly. The screen is frozen, you're furiously clicking the mouse, but no inputs are registering because the underlying system is just completely overwhelmed by some massive background process.
That is a perfect analogy. Because that concept of a background process monopolizing the system is precisely what is happening neurologically.
Okay, unpack that for me.
So the source text points to this phenomenon known as an amygdala hijack.
The amygdala hijack.
Right. And to understand this, we really have to look at the basic architecture of the human brain. The amygdala is this incredibly ancient almond-shaped cluster of nuclei, right deep within the temporal lobe.
Like the lizard brain kind of thing.
Essentially, yeah. Its primary function is threat detection. It's the body's ultimate alarm system and is constantly scanning your environment for danger.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. When it perceives a threat, it does not wait for your conscious mind to verify it.
It just bypasses the logic entirely.
Completely bypasses it. It immediately signals the hypothalamus, which then triggers your adrenal glands to just pump adrenaline and cortisol straight into your bloodstream.
Which explains the sweating and the heart rate. But the crucial piece of this puzzle, at least for us today, is what happens to the rest of the brain while the amygdala is, sounding that massive alarm.
Right.
The text specifically highlights the prefrontal cortex.
Yes.
Which is that modern, highly evolved part of the brain right behind your forehead, right? It handles executive function, logical reasoning, and critically for you, the listener complex language processing.
Exactly. And the connection between the amygdala and that prefrontal cortex is basically a zero-sum game when you're under extreme stress.
A zero-sum game, how?
Well, when the amygdala activates its emergency protocol, it effectively just cuts the power to the prefrontal cortex.
Wow. It just pulls the plug.
Literally pulls the plug to conserve energy for the fight or flight response. Your body's redirecting all its resources to your muscles in your cardiovascular system.
Because it thinks you need to run.
Exactly. The brain operates under the assumption that formulating a sophisticated, grammatically perfect sentence in English is completely useless if you are about to be eaten.
Right. I don't need to conjugate verbs. I need to sprint.
Precisely. It cannot differentiate between a hostile interrogation from a senior vice president of finance and a literal physical predator jumping out of the bushes.
The boardroom tiger.
The boardroom tiger, exactly.
That completely recontextualizes the shame people feel when they freeze up.
It really should.
Because the source makes this profound point of validating that exact experience. If you find yourself completely unable to recall a basic English noun during a high-stakes presentation, it's not proof that you're unqualified.
No, not at all.
Or intellectually deficient. It is simply your evolutionary biology operating exactly as it was designed to over hundreds of thousands of years.
Your brain is prioritizing your physical survival over your quarterly review.
Which is nice of it, I guess, but super inconvenient in a meeting.
Highly inconvenient.
Yeah.
And, recognizing that biological reality is definitely liberating, but it also presents a really severe tactical challenge.
Right, because we still have to answer the question.
Exactly. Because the prefrontal cortex, your logic center, has been totally sidelined, your primitive instinct takes over.
Okay, and what is that instinct?
Well, in a modern social setting, our instinctual method for trying to force the system to reboot is to just desperately open our mouths and start talking the absolute millisecond the question ends.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we try to talk our way out of the freeze because the silence in that room just feels lethal.
It feels physically painful.
It really does. The pressure to just fill that void is immense. And the text identifies this impulse as one of the most pervasive and damaging myths in professional communication.
Which is what?
The false belief that immediate speed is the ultimate indicator of fluency and competence.
Yes. That is such a trap.
Right. Like, people assume that if you don't answer instantly, the room is just going to judge you as incompetent.
The assumption is a delay in response equals a deficit in intelligence.
Exactly.
People assume the audience will interpret even a 3-second pause as absolute incompetence. So this panic-driven urgency leads to the trap of the instant response.
And when you let panic dictate your pacing,
you completely forfeit your strategic positioning. Every time.
Okay, and the source uses this amazingly visceral analogy for what happens when we give in to that panic and just start talking. It calls rushing into an answer sprinting on a sheet of solid ice.
Oh, I love that imagery.
The mechanics of it are just perfect, right? When you sprint on ice, your legs are turning incredibly fast. You're burning a massive amount of cardiovascular energy.
You're trying so hard.
Exactly. Internally, you feel like you're generating all this momentum.
Yeah.
But because there's absolutely no friction, you have zero traction.
No.
You can't steer, you can't stop. You are literally simply flailing until gravity inevitably pulls you flat on your face.
It's the illusion of productivity through mere motion.
Wow, yeah.
And in a linguistic context, sprinting on ice manifests as rambling.
The dreaded ramble.
Right. You begin vocalizing way before you actually have a thesis. You string together all this corporate jargon and filler words, just kind of hoping a coherent destination will miraculously appear at the end of the sentence.
Synergize the paradigms moving forward.
Exactly. But the audience can always hear the lack of structure. They can hear the panic.
So if the instant response is the trap, the countermeasure introduced by the source is basically a complete inversion of our natural instincts. It's this concept of the pensive pause.
The pensive pause, yes.
And we see this consistently in individuals who possess immense executive presence, right? Like veteran CEOs testifying before congressional committees.
Or seasoned diplomats navigating really tense press conferences.
Right. They do not view silence as an enemy. At all.
No, they treat it as an instrument of control.
Exactly. They might take a slow, deliberate sip of water, or they might nod slowly while looking down at their notes before reestablishing eye contact.
What they're doing is consciously manipulating the tempo of the interaction. By refusing to answer immediately, they dictate the rhythm of the room, rather than just submitting to the rhythm of whoever asked the question.
Okay, but I need to play devil's advocate here and challenge the practical application of this.
Sure, go for it.
Because the theory sounds wonderful. High status, total control. But the reality is absolutely terrifying.
It can be, yeah.
Like, if I'm the junior person in a meeting, Or if I'm pitching a highly skeptical client in English, which isn't my first language, a 4-second unbroken silence feels incredibly risky.
It feels like an eternity.
Doesn't sitting there silently risk communicating to the room that I am completely stumped? Like, I genuinely worry the client thinks I didn't understand the vocabulary they used, or worse, that I'm just entirely out of my depth.
That anxiety is so common, but it really stems from conflating two entirely different physical states.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the text draws a really sharp, vital distinction between uncomfortable, nervous silence and calm, intentional silence.
Oh, interesting.
Because the audience is not just measuring the length of the pause with a stopwatch. They are reading all of your nonverbal data.
Body language.
Exactly. Nervous silence is characterized by physical shrinking, right?
Yeah.
Erratic eye movement, shallow breathing,
Right.
looking down at your shoes.
Right, looking like you want to disappear.
That absolutely telegraphs incompetence or panic. Intentional silence, however, projects authority.
So the physical execution completely alters the meaning of the silence.
Completely. When you hold eye contact, maintain an open, relaxed posture, and maybe nod thoughtfully, that silence communicates that you recognize the gravity of their question.
You're taking them seriously.
Right. It proves you are affording their query the analytical weight it deserves. The source points out that it signals a really specific type of power.
What kind of power?
It demonstrates that you do not feel the pressure to perform like a trained SEAL.
Oh, wow.
You are not intimidated by the expectation of an instant reaction.
Like a trained SEAL. That is such a great distinction. Refusing that expectation is a huge demonstration of status. But acknowledging the reality of corporate hierarchies, pure silence can still feel just way too heavy for someone early in their career. Like, the pensive pause requires a level of inherent authority that maybe a junior analyst just hasn't established yet.
That's a very fair point.
So we need a way to fill that agonizing gap without reverting to sprinting on the ice.
And this brings us to a really tactical concept from the source. Cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading.
Yes. The source provides specific verbal stalling tools known as bridge phrases.
Bridge phrases.
Okay, right. If pure silence is too daunting, you deploy a highly rehearsed, pre-memorized sentence to literally bridge the gap.
Like what? What's an example?
For example, looking right at the person and calmly stating, "That is a complex issue. Let me think about the best way to unpack this for you."
That is a complex issue. Let me think about the best way to unpack this for you.
Exactly.
Okay, on the surface, that just sounds polite. But the text really digs into the cognitive load theory behind why this specific technique is so vital for your biological recovery.
It does. It's fascinating.
Right. So cognitive load refers to the total amount of mental effort being used in your working memory.
Right.
And when that hostile question lands, your working memory is instantly overloaded.
Right.
You are trying to translate the language, manage the massive cortisol spike, interpret the power dynamics of the room, and secretly draft an argument all at the exact same time.
Your mental bandwidth is just entirely consumed. It's maxed out.
Maxed out. So where does the bridge phrase come in?
Well, the genius of the bridge phrase lies in its absolute lack of complexity. Because these sentences are grammatically simple. And critically, you've rehearsed them to the point of pure muscle memory. They require almost zero cognitive bandwidth to execute.
So you don't even have to think about them.
Right. You bypass the prefrontal cortex entirely and just rely on ingrained motor patterns.
Here is where it gets really interesting to me. The computer architecture analogy returns, and it's basically this beautiful dual processing magic trick.
It really is a magic trick.
You program your mouth to run an automated background script. So your vocal cords are delivering the smooth, professional phrase that holds the floor and satisfies the room's expectation for sound.
They get their instant response.
Exactly. But simultaneously, your newly freed up working memory has 5 completely uninterrupted seconds to manage the adrenaline and formulate the actual architecture of your real answer.
You are buying time while maintaining the complete illusion of instant responsiveness.
It's so smart. And the source outlines a secondary offloading tool that achieves that exact same dual processing effect, right?
Yes, it's called the repeat or rephrase tactic.
Repeat or rephrase.
Right. This involves mirroring the premise of the question right back to the individual.
Okay, how does that look in practice?
Well, if a stakeholder asks this convoluted multi-part question about, say, supply chain vulnerabilities, you just pause and say, "To ensure I am addressing your specific concern, you are asking how we plan to mitigate the downstream logistics delays associated with the new vendor."
Okay, I see the utility in buying time there, but I have a serious reservation about the perception of mirroring.
Really, what's the concern?
Well, if I repeatedly echo questions back to senior leadership, doesn't that make me appear, I don't know, inattentive, especially in a cross-cultural environment? My immediate fear is that the room will assume my English comprehension is just poor, and I'm basically asking for a translation under the guise of clarification.
I get that fear. But the risk of appearing inattentive only really exists if the mirroring is used indiscriminately for, like, really simple questions.
Oh, like repeating, where is the bathroom?
Right, exactly. Don't do that. The source specifically frames this tactic for complex or hostile scenarios.
Okay.
Think about how true subject matter experts operate across any discipline. They rarely accept a premise at face value.
That's true.
They define their terms before they commit to any analysis. So rephrasing does not signal a lack of comprehension. It demonstrates a demand for precision.
Oh, I like that. A demand for precision.
It signals active listening and a complete refusal to operate on assumptions. You are establishing the exact parameters of the discussion before you deploy your expertise.
You are confirming the boundaries of the battlefield.
Perfectly said.
It shifts the dynamic entirely from a student answering a teacher to an expert consulting with a client.
Exactly.
And there's another really brilliant detail in the text regarding how we buy time that focuses purely on, like, auditory physics.
The filler sounds.
Yes, the filler sounds we make when our brains are stalled, because our natural instinct is to try and eradicate all filler words to achieve this perfect robotic fluency.
Which is impossible.
Right. But the source suggests a subtle auditory shift instead.
This is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Because when panic sets in, your vocal cords literally tighten due to the stress.
Right.
And that results in short, rapid, high-pitched filler sounds. The classic breathless,
It sounds so nervous.
It does. Biologically, a high-pitched, rapid vocalization signals distress. It essentially sounds like a plea for assistance.
Please help me.
Right. So the text advises a conscious, physical shift to a deliberate, drawn-out, lower register sound, like a deep,
The physics of that shift are just fascinating, because to drop the pitch of your voice, you literally have to relax your vocal folds.
You do.
So it forces this micro moment of physical decompression. You transition from sounding biologically panicked to sounding deeply analytical and professorial.
Just by lowering the pitch.
Just by lowering the pitch. It is literally a millimeter of adjustment in the throat that completely rewrites the room's perception of your intelligence.
It's incredible. And all of these tactics, the intentional pause, the automated bridge phrases, the precision of rephrasing, lowering your vocal pitch, they all serve a singular unified purpose.
Which is?
They are biological shock absorbers.
No, shock absorbers.
Yes, they allow your nervous system to absorb the kinetic energy of a hostile question without crashing your cognitive processing.
Okay, so let's say we've successfully absorbed the shock. You deployed the bridge phrase, your amygdala has finally downregulated, and your prefrontal cortex is back online.
The lights are back on.
Exactly. The room is quiet, the floor is yours. The biological crisis is officially averted, but now you face the structural crisis.
Right. You actually have to say something smart.
You actually have to deliver a coherent answer, because without a structural blueprint, you risk falling right back onto the ice and sprinting again.
And the danger here is circular speaking.
Circular speaking.
Without a predefined architectural framework, speakers tend to just think out loud.
Oh, I've done this.
We all have. You provide a massive preamble of context, you weave through multiple caveats, introduce all these secondary narratives, and eventually you just bury your actual thesis under a mountain of tangential data.
And the audience completely loses the core message.
Often, the speaker loses their own train of thought.
Wait, what was the question again?
Exactly.
So to prevent that collapse, the text introduces the definitive blueprint for impromptu professional speaking, the PRP method.
PR.
Right. Point, reason, example, point. It's a rigid 4-part structure that you can just rely on blindly when your cognitive load is high.
And the PRP method is ubiquitous in executive communication for a reason. It perfectly aligns with the limitations of human memory.
Right. The psychology behind it.
Yes. The text roots this structure in 2 cognitive biases, the primacy effect and the recency effect.
Okay, explain those.
So German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus actually pioneered the study of memory, and he demonstrated that human beings have a highly skewed retention curve.
We don't remember everything equally.
Not at all. We're hardwired to remember the very first piece of information in a sequence.
That's the primacy effect.
Exactly. And the very last piece of information, the recency effect.
So what happens to all this stuff in the middle?
The vast majority of the data presented in the middle just becomes a blurry, generalized wash.
Wow.
So knowing that the listener's memory is inherently flawed like that, the PRP structure engineers your response to place the most vital information exactly where the brain is primed to encode it best.
You bookend your argument with your thesis.
Precisely. Let's construct a few scenarios based on the text to demonstrate how universally this applies.
Do it.
Imagine you're in a tech startup and an investor aggressively questions the necessity of your remote work policy.
Okay, high stress. So you deploy the first P, the point. This is your headline. It's unambiguous and delivered with zero preamble. You just say, I believe maintaining our remote work architecture is critical to our development timeline.
Bam. You have planted the flag.
Yep.
Now you move to the R, the reason. This provides the logical scaffolding for your point.
Yeah.
Because asynchronous environments allow our engineering team to achieve the deep, uninterrupted focus required for complex algorithmic problem solving.
Okay, so that's the logical why.
Right.
Then you introduce the E, the example. This is where you transition from abstract theory to undeniable, concrete reality. You say, for instance, during the third quarter, the back-end team operated fully remote and delivered a measurable 20% increase in code deployment compared to our in-office metrics.
Beautiful. You anchor the theory in cold, hard data.
Right.
And finally, you close the loop with the second P, restating the point. That definitive increase in output is exactly why I strongly defend the remote policy.
The structure is just incredibly tight, and it really scales to any industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, consider a financial audit where a regulator questions a specific budget allocation.
Okay, let's run it.
This allocation was deliberately directed toward cybersecurity infrastructure. Reason? Because our legacy firewalls were no longer compliant with the new federal data privacy mandates.
Valid.
An example. The penetration test conducted in May revealed 3 critical vulnerabilities that this specific software patch resolved. And the final point, ensuring we avoided non-compliance fines is why the funds were allocated there.
It's bulletproof.
It is. And what I find so brilliant about the PR up P method is this hidden mechanical benefit highlighted in the source. That final P acts as a built-in braking system for your mouth.
A braking system?
Yeah, because when adrenaline is high, honestly, the most difficult aspect of speaking is knowing precisely when to stop.
That is so true. People just trail off.
They just keep going. And so, yeah, that's what I think. But the final point sends a definitive neurological signal to your brain that the architecture is complete.
The argument is built.
Right. You can literally just close your mouth. It entirely eliminates the phenomenon of trailing off into those awkward, meandering conclusions.
It enforces discipline.
It really does.
However, the source does acknowledge that persuasion is not the only mode of professional communication.
Right. Sometimes things are just on fire.
Exactly. There are scenarios where you are not defending a thesis, but rather you're managing a sudden critical failure. And in a crisis, the PRP method is a little too persuasive and not sufficiently utilitarian.
So what's the framework for a crisis?
For sudden crisis management, the text provides a secondary framework. What, so what, now what?
So what, now what?
Right. Because when an emergency strikes, leadership does not want context, they don't want excuses, and they definitely do not want a persuasive essay.
No, they want facts.
They want rapid situational awareness. So the what is the unvarnished, objective reality of the failure. For example, the primary server cluster has experienced a catastrophic thermal failure and is currently offline.
Okay. Brutal but clear. Then the so what translates that technical failure into direct business impact. Like, why does the audience need to care immediately? This means our e-commerce platform is down and we are currently unable to process any customer transactions globally.
Exactly. And then the now what is the immediate, actionable path forward.
Right.
We have initiated the failover to the backup servers. We expect to be fully operational within 45 minutes, and the communications team is drafting a customer advisory right now.
What? So what? Now what? It delivers pure utility. It's a framework designed to ruthlessly cut through panic and project ultimate control over a spiraling situation.
It's pure leadership.
It is. Okay, so these blueprints, PRP, and the crisis framework, they are incredibly robust structural safety nets. But communication is fluid, right? It's inherently chaotic.
Always.
What happens when the underlying blueprint holds, but the internal components just fail?
What do you mean?
Specifically, what occurs when you are halfway through a perfectly structured PRP answer and you suddenly experience a complete vocabulary blackout.
Oh, the forgotten word dilemma.
Yes, it's the listener's worst nightmare.
It is one of the most acute stress triggers in professional communication, particularly for non-native speakers. Though, to be fair, it happens universally under cognitive load.
Even to native speakers.
All the time. You have the concept perfectly visualized in your mind, but the specific English noun just completely evaporates.
It's paralyzing. You stop mid-sentence. You break eye contact. You start staring at the ceiling as if the word infrastructure is miraculously written on the plaster.
And the silence stretches out.
The panic floods back in, and your entire carefully constructed momentum just shatters. So how does the source suggest navigating a hard vocabulary roadblock like that?
The text introduces this really elegant linguistic detour strategy known as circumlocution.
Circumlocution.
Right. This is the deliberate art of talking around the forgotten word by describing its function, its visual characteristics, or its relationship to other concepts.
Oh, okay.
It's utilizing semantic mapping to bypass the missing node in your vocabulary.
The example provided in the text is brilliantly simple. Imagine you're giving a logistics presentation and you completely lose the word warehouse.
Very common.
The instinct is to freeze and panic, but circumlocution trains you to seamlessly substitute the definition for the word. So instead of freezing, you simply say, the large industrial facility where we store our inventory.
Exactly. Or if you forget the word grandfather, you just say, my father's father.
Right. The elegance of circumlocution is that the listener instantly decodes your meaning without the communication flow ever being broken.
They probably won't even notice.
They won't. Your pacing remains steady, your tone remains authoritative, and the transfer of information is entirely successful.
And this specific tactic really illuminates what I consider the most liberating philosophical lesson of this entire deep dive.
What's that?
It's a concept that challenges literally everything we are taught in traditional language education. The source makes it abundantly clear. Clarity beats perfection. Every single time.
Clarity beats perfection. I love that.
We are so conditioned by academic grading systems to view communication as a test of grammatical flawlessness.
Getting an A+ on the vocab test.
Exactly. We labor under this paralyzing illusion that a misplaced preposition or a substituted noun diminishes our professional worth.
Yeah.
But the source violently rejects that premise.
Right, because business isn't a classroom.
Not at all. In a high-stakes business environment, your audience, whether they are stakeholders, clients, executives, they are ruthlessly pragmatic. They are utilizing your information to solve complex problems or generate revenue. They are not mentally redlining your syntax.
The business world operates on utility, not linguistic perfectionism. And the expert commentary in the source shatters this illusion even further by pointing out the reality of native speech.
Oh, this is so true.
If you analyze a raw transcript of two native speakers engaged in a high-level strategic debate, it is chaotic.
It's a mess.
It's filled with fragmented sentences, abandoned thoughts, grammatical structural errors, and rampant circumlocution. Flawless textbook speech simply does not exist in unscripted, high-pressure human interaction.
Never. And when you consciously relinquish that impossible standard of perfectionism, you instantly free up massive amounts of cognitive load.
Because you aren't policing yourself anymore.
Exactly. You stop dedicating working memory to policing your grammar, and you redirect all of that intellectual horsepower toward the clarity and impact of your ideas.
Okay, so letting go of perfectionism solves the internal roadblocks. But what about external roadblocks?
Like what?
What happens when clarity isn't enough because the person across the table is actively attempting to ambush you? Like they want you to stumble.
Ah, the hostile ambush. Yes.
The source details the mechanics of this, right?
It does. It identifies a specific aggressive maneuver called the overwhelm tactic.
The overwhelm tactic.
Right. This is not a genuine request for information. It is a conversational power play. It's designed to induce a biological freeze and make you appear incompetent in front of the room.
So how do they do it?
The aggressor fires a rapid, multi-part, heavily loaded question at you without pausing for breath.
They intentionally stack complex variables. Like they might say, how does your proposal address the massive Q3 budget shortfalls? What is the exact timeline for global integration? And haven't you even bothered to consider the catastrophic drop in team morale this restructuring will cause?
Ugh. Just hearing that raises my heart rate.
Right. They hurl three completely distinct, emotionally charged queries at you simultaneously.
And the natural, instinctual response is to attempt to catch all the falling knives.
Yeah.
You try to answer chronologically. So you begin addressing the budget.
Yeah.
But your working memory is already stressing about the timeline, and your emotional center is reacting defensively to the accusation about morale.
You lose structural integrity completely.
Instantly. You revert right back to sprinting on ice.
You are reacting to their chaos, which is exactly the outcome the aggressor engineered. So what is the tactical countermove here? How do you defend against an overwhelming ambush without appearing evasive or defensive?
The source provides a defense that is essentially verbal martial arts.
Oh, I like that.
The core principle is that you must absolutely refuse their pacing.
Refuse the pacing.
You cannot accept the chaotic, accelerated terms of their engagement. You have to force the interaction back into a structured, manageable framework.
So you hold your ground. You maintain unbroken, calm eye contact. You consciously ensure your voice is slow and pitched in that lower authoritative register. And you say, you've raised several critical, complex points regarding the budget, the timeline, and the impact on team morale. Which of those 3 specific areas would you like me to address first?
Let's deconstruct the psychology of why that response completely neutralizes the attack.
Let's do it.
By asking, which of those 3 areas would you like me to address first? Graciously. You are executing a structural hard stop.
You're throwing up a stop sign.
Right. You force the aggressive questioner to halt their momentum, organize their own chaotic barrage of thoughts, and commit to a single lane of inquiry.
It is brilliant because it is utterly professional.
It is.
You aren't refusing to answer. You aren't matching their hostility. You are simply demanding a systematic, orderly process.
Exactly.
You expose the chaos of their question by politely requiring them to prioritize it. It instantly shifts the power dynamic.
You transition from being the victim of an ambush to being the architect of the discussion. It projects an image of an unflappable, highly organized professional who just refuses to be raveled by conversational pressure tactics.
It completely reestablishes your status. Okay, so we have mapped the terrain extensively today.
We really have.
We have the cognitive tools to buy time. We have the PRP architecture to structure complex thoughts, the circumlocution skills to bypass missing vocabulary, and the tactical discipline to neutralize a hostile pacing attack.
It's a full toolkit.
But there is one final inescapable scenario.
Okay, what is it?
What if you deploy all these tools, right? You buy the time, you structure your mind, and the genuine, unvarnished truth is simply that you just do not have the answer. Like, what if the decision truly hasn't been made yet?
Navigating genuine uncertainty is perhaps the highest level skill in corporate communication. The source refers to this as the art of professional doubt.
The art of professional doubt. Because the instinctual response, just shrugging your shoulders and saying, I don't know, or we haven't decided yet, is deeply problematic in a high-stakes setting.
It sounds incredibly weak.
It does. Executive audiences detest absolute unearned certainty, obviously, but they equally detest unpreparedness. A blunt, I don't know, creates a total vacuum of authority.
It makes you appear disconnected from the strategic process.
Right. So you need a highly nuanced vocabulary to express ambiguity while maintaining your professional stature.
And the text provides 3 specific advanced idiomatic phrases designed to elevate your English specifically for these moments of strategic doubt.
Okay, let's hear them.
These phrases essentially reframe a lack of a final decision as an active, rigorous process of evaluation. The first idiom is describing a situation as toing and froing.
Toing and froing?
Right. For example, the steering committee has been toing and froing on the logistics of this merger all week.
The mechanics of that phrase are excellent because toing and froing implies kinetic energy.
It does.
It evokes this image of a pendulum swinging back and forth between 2 points. It doesn't sound like you're avoiding a decision. It communicates that you are deeply engaged in an active, rigorous debate.
You are evaluating the variables.
Right. It frames the delay not as ignorance, but as necessary diligence.
Precisely. Now, the second advanced idiom addresses the internal conflict of complex decisions. It is stating that you are in 2 minds about an issue.
In 2 minds.
Right. Looking at the initial data, I am in 2 minds about authorizing the full rollout of this software.
This phrase projects an incredible amount of intellectual sophistication.
It really does.
Saying you are in 2 minds explicitly recognizes the complex validity of competing arguments. It signals to the room, look, I comprehend the massive potential upside of this action, and I equally comprehend the severe associated risks. I am holding both of these realities in my intellect simultaneously.
It's a superbly professional alternative to simply stating you're unsure.
It proves you understand the nuance of the battlefield.
Exactly. And finally, the source offers the definitive idiom for establishing a temporal boundary, demanding time to sleep on it.
Sleep on it, yes.
That is a highly consequential budget reallocation. Let me sleep on it, and I will provide my definitive assessment in the morning.
It's universally understood, it's culturally acceptable, and it's highly polite, yet it operates as an undeniable command.
You are demanding a buffer for subconscious processing.
Right. You are setting a firm boundary that you will not be rushed into a high-stakes commitment while remaining entirely collaborative and professional in your tone.
Mastering these idioms, toing and froing, in two minds, sleep on it, injects immense nuance into your communication. It proves that even when you are operating in a landscape of total ambiguity, you remain articulate, deliberate, and in complete control of the process.
Man, this deep dive has essentially provided the schematics for building a psychological suit of armor.
It really has.
We started by dismantling the shame of the mental freeze, recognizing the amygdala hijack as a biological reality, not a professional failure. We learned how to counter the myth of speed by wielding the pensive pause and dropping our vocal pitch to project authority.
We explored the mechanics of cognitive offloading, using those bridge phrases to buy the prefrontal cortex the time it needs to reboot.
We established the PRP method to capitalize on primacy and recency effects, and the what, so what now? What framework for pure crisis utility?
We learned to bypass the panic of forgotten words with circumlocution, holding fast to the principle that clarity supersedes perfection.
Yes, clarity beats perfection. We neutralize the overwhelming ambush by refusing to accept chaotic pacing. And finally, we learn to articulate ambiguity with idiomatic grace.
It's an incredible toolkit. But to synthesize the magnitude of these tools, I really want to reiterate the ultimate profound conclusion from the source text.
What is the ultimate takeaway here?
This is the core thesis to hold on to. A complex, difficult question in a high-stakes environment is never merely a test of your memorized data. Anyone can pull metrics from a spreadsheet. An unexpected, hostile question is a fundamental test of your professional character. It reveals to the room exactly how your operating system functions under extreme stress.
Wow.
Do you surrender to biology and sprint on ice? Or do you command the silence and dictate the terms of the engagement?
But character and composure in those moments, they aren't just innate talents bestowed upon a lucky few, right?
Not at all. They are engineered skills, and skills degrade without deliberate, consistent practice.
Which brings us to the actionable advice. The source issues a highly specific mandate to build this muscle memory. It demands that you practice the PREP structure out loud for 10 minutes every single day.
10 minutes a day.
10 minutes of active vocal repetition. You don't need an audience. You can do this while commuting to the office, while making your morning coffee, or while walking the dog.
Just pick an entirely random, low-stakes, everyday topic.
Right. Build an argument for why winter is a superior season to summer. Defend your preference for a specific type of coffee. PRP. Point, reason, example, point.
By drilling this architecture in environments with zero cognitive load, you actually forge the neural pathways required to deploy it automatically when the adrenaline hits in the boardroom.
Repetition transforms the theoretical framework into a biological reflex. So when the tiger jumps out, the architecture is already fully constructed in your mind.
Exactly.
As we conclude today's deep dive, I want to offer a final thought that extends way beyond the corporate parameters of our source material.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've dedicated the last hour to mastering executive presence, navigating stakeholder hostility, and managing cognitive load in professional boardrooms. But consider the universal application of these psychological mechanics.
Right.
If we can systematically train our brains to override our fight-or-flight responses, to deploy a pensive pause instead of a panic reaction at work, how radically might these exact same frameworks transform our personal lives?
That's a profound thought. Because the underlying biology of an intense dispute does not change when you leave the office. The physiological cascade of an argument with a spouse is identical to an argument with a client.
It's the exact same cortisol. Imagine the impact of utilizing the what, so what, now what framework to de-escalate a heated romantic disagreement, focusing entirely on the immediate issue rather than resurrecting like 5 years of emotional history.
That would save a lot of marriages.
Right. Imagine having the conditioned discipline to take a deliberate, intentional, pensive pause during a tense family conflict, actively lowering the pitch of your voice instead of snapping back with an instantaneous, hurtful defense.
Powerful.
Could the exact same cognitive tools we use to safeguard our professional reputations also be the definitive key to protecting and deepening our most vital, intimate relationships?
It really challenges us to consider how intentionally we communicate across the entire spectrum of human interaction, recognizing that composure is universally valuable.
It really is something to carefully consider the next time you feel the temperature rising and your heart rate spiking, no matter what room you are in. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep practicing that PRP architecture. Keep challenging your own assumptions about perfection. And above all, stay intensely curious.
Absolutely.
The next time that impossible question hits and the heavy silence falls over the room, remember, you are not frozen. You are just taking a pensive pause. We will catch you next time.